All right, all right, all right. We are live. Hello, everyone. Hello, Donna again. Um,
Hello, hello.
how are you?
I'm absolutely awesome.
All right,
Amazing.
all
I'm
right.
breathing, I'm living, I'm good.
You're good, right? You woke up on the other side of glory, right?
Listen,
You could have woken up on the other side of glory. Let's put it that way. Okay.
yes.
All righty. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us again today. As you know, our topic is basically how can Black women discourage racism in the workplace. So, of course, we had a part one last week. And then, we had great interactions from you guys, and we absolutely love that. And you had asked for a part two. And also, the other part of this story is we really didn't even get to broach most of the questions that we truly, really wanted to discuss. So, of course, Donna was gracious enough to come back again with us. So, of course, on the intro, you saw where it said you're supposed to share, share, share. So before we even go any further, might I ask you to do exactly that if you haven't done so already? And if you have, thank you so much. And of course, the primary reason why we ask you to share ahead of time is because this way, the people who you love dearest and the people who you believe can benefit a lot from this can get it from the top of the hour. And of course, this is a very important discussion. So before we go any further, the one thing I would love to say, I would love to acknowledge all the fathers that are out there. Thank you so much that are playing your part, doing what needs to be done, because of course we know you. We know that the man must lead, and the man covering his family is a precious resource. So of course we are grateful for you, and we are oh so happy for all the fathers who think it not robbery to completely cover their family. So thank you so much for being there, and happy Father's Day. All righty. So who am I? I am Judy N. Chung. I'm your brilliance activator, your confidence and your leadership coach. I help women to strengthen their confidence, rebuild their hope, and ultimately activate their brilliance and soar. Corporately, I am an operation risk manager. Now, we decided to focus on this particular topic based on obviously the obvious thing, right? What's going on in the environment right now. But this is not just a right now issue. Quite frankly, it's an issue that's been happening, for decades, right? So it's just come to a pivotal point where I think the awakening of a lot of people who were perhaps in some level of slumber, right? Or just not in a less and less state of awareness. So it's just the perfect time to have this discussion. So with me today is the wonderful Donna Hicks Izzard, and she is I gave her an intro and a bio last week, so I'm just going to give a shortened version in the interest of time. So of course, she's an author, international speaker, and woman empowerment leader, and a multiple revenue stream strategist. Donna is a woman with a vision. She basically, under her tutelage, she enlightened and incite our clients to become more than just entrepreneurs with a side hustle. Rather, she had them become the CEO-preneurs with multiple revenue streams. She is a woman with a gift. Also, a notable few things about Donna, and this is just a few, right? Or a couple, I should say. She she's been noted in the Huffington Post, and also being one of the top 30 Black global leaders by Impact magazine. So of course you can see that she is definitely, as she said, a woman with a gift. And more importantly, she's also known as the DI, which means the disruptive innovator. So welcome again, Donna, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And just a last quick thing before we kick off. Guys, feel free to always comment. We know we don't want to just be talking, we don't want a dialogue, right? We just, between Donna and I, we want you guys to engage just like you did last week and even more, right? Alrighty, so Donna, you want to add anything to that?
What is there to add? What is there to add? I'm the
Okay.
D.I. Donna is our disruptive innovator, and I've come to ignite you, inspire you, and invite you to think differently as you come on this broadcast with Judy and I. And I celebrate and honor Judy for allowing me this opportunity, and surely celebrate and honor all the dads out there who are fathers. So happy Father's Day.
Right. Thank you so much. Okay. So, when we left off last week, we had given some tips that both, Black people as well as that white people could use. But some of the things we never got to speak of, and we spoke more of on an individual basis of what people can do. But let's steer the conversation a little bit towards what organizations can do, and not necessarily pay platitudes, because as we said, there's a lot of emails that are coming out, posts on their websites, donation of money to Black organizations, etc., which are good and they're a good first start, right? But donations alone without follow through and systematic official protocols, unless those are in place, at the end of the day, when everything dies down, you got a pot of money, now what? So what are some of the things that you would suggest from a corporation point of view that they could possibly incorporate in their policies and procedures that are tangible things that can make a difference going forward?
Well, for me, the buzzwords going around now so much in so many arenas called systematic racism.
Mm-hmm.
Right, systematic racism, where people, believe that there's systematic racism in the police force. There's systematic racism in corporate America. There's systematic racism in America, period. So,
Right.
My background is training development, and so I am clear that training is a huge component of how do we go from here? Where do we go from next? And so,
Mm-hmm.
as people are talking about systematic racism, I say systematic training, okay? Systematic ongoing training in these
Right.
organizations. One
Mm-hmm.
thing that as I was, reviewing what is going on, I said I thought about what can I do my part. I also thought about the corporations. What can corporations do? And what I believe is that because you have corporations that have a diverse workforce, maybe
Right.
some departments may not be as diverse as we would like them to be. But I believe that it starts at the corporations. Why? Because most people have to work, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though you have a lot of people out of work, at the end of the day, most people will be going back to work, or most people are in the workforce. And so I say start there, because we are there most of the time. Most of our day is spent on the job, right? And so that's an opportunity for corporations to have systematic training ongoing, not just now, not
Right.
just putting out an email, not just saying, okay, guess what, guys, we got a diversity and inclusion officer, or we got a diversity and inclusion manager. For me, that's not enough. Let's have
Right.
systematic ongoing training, and let's have some real talk conversations.
Right. And I totally agree with you. And I do think, to add to what you've just said, one of the trainings that they should incorporate is a training on racism, right?
Yes.
And usually, so if you notice, if anybody's been following my page, you know that I've really been recommending that book, White Fragility. And the reason why I recommended that book is because it's coming from a white woman, right? So usually it's best for somebody to hear it from, they respond better to hearing it someone coming, that look like them, right? That's just how it is, right?
That's
so right.
known fact. Okay?
Exactly, right.
Okay, known fact. Attorneys attorneys want to hear from another attorney who's training them. Okay, they don't really want to hear from me, even though I know more than they know when it comes to technology. They don't want to hear from the DI. Okay, but however, if an attorney was training them on the same topic I'm training, they're going to pay more attention to that attorney. I mean, it's just a known fact. It's how adults learn.
Right, exactly. So one of the things, because she spoke about when she went into organizations to train on racism, that immediately she would actually, as part of her study, and they did not know that technically they were literally being part of her study, right? By their body and the posture in which they got into the room, they were annoyed that they had to take this training in the first place, because they're thinking it's like it's telling them, oh, I'm taking the training because I'm racist. Well, no, you're not training because you're racist. You're taking the training because you need to develop a higher level of awareness. Of possibly sometimes the unconscious bias that you may be displaying without even knowing it, i.e. it being unconscious, right? So so it ties right into what you were saying about training, and I think it's actually would be a prudent thing, and I think it should be one of the staples that are within every corporation where you have different kind of trainings that can skill set training, but in this case, from a personal development point of view, I think, as you said, being a person from training, that a training on racism would be absolutely ideal, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because I it would deal with a lot of those unconscious biases and not even recognizing when you are actually contributing to this whole systematic change, racism. So if you recall the story that I told last week, wherein I was interviewing two ladies. Okay, one was from Africa, even though she was living in the UK, and the other one was, really good European, British woman. And when the call went into both women, it was calling both their cell phones. Both calls went directly into voicemail. My manager at the time, who's white, she said to me, "Oh, okay, well, the African lady missed her chance. We'll just call back the other woman." So at that moment, I says, "But why? The same thing happened with both of them. Why would you only call back one?" She didn't really have a reason. So that's a perfect example, right? Of, without even thinking, she just said, "We'll call back the woman who was white, right? Looked like her, but not call back the African lady," just because either it's unconscious or maybe she was being conscious of her actions. I can't judge her. I don't know. But I'm just telling you that's a perfect example of why that training was needed, because the event that occurred did not hold true as to why she would choose to give one the opportunity rather than both the opportunity to be interviewed. So that's a perfect example. Alrighty.
Yes.
Alrighty. So guys, again, I can see a few of you definitely out there. Feel free, as I share, to comment, talk back to us, let us know your thoughts. Alrighty. So just to move on from there, so we spoke about the monies that they're pouring into organization. We said, okay, go ahead and doing some of those trainings. Now, how do you feel that in terms of, and you touched a little bit on it because you said in some areas maybe there be diversities underrepresented, right? So in terms of going up the pipeline for management, what are your thoughts on the level of diversity that we have in the pipeline?
Well, again, it starts from the corporation's responsibility and accountability, right?
Right.
Accountability, whereas you have to have management, senior level management, as well as HR, talk about, why are some of these departments lily white?
Right.
What,
Right.
like, what is that about? And so, which means you got to have some maybe uncomfortable conversations, and
Right.
and also something that you just said, like when you had the two people, right? Your manager just automatically wanted to call back this other woman.
Right.
I have been in situations where people come in, people of color have more experience, maybe even higher level degrees.
Right.
Okay. And yet they will choose the person who they are most comfortable with. Okay. That's a problem. And it's a problem that also should be called out.
Right.
Should be called out.
Right.
For me, when I'm in those when I'm in those situations, I call it out.
Right.
I'm sorry. I didn't just wait till Black Lives Matter to call these things out. I've been in the legal industry, almost 30 years. Okay.
Right.
And even when it wasn't, it wasn't comfortable, I have a way of saying, explain to me why this person versus that person. I don't have a problem with that, because the way I believe is that when we remain silent, then we are part of the problem.
Right.
When we remain silent, we are part of the problem. Now, most people would not be brave enough, or surely wouldn't be bold enough to be like, "Oh no, why would you say that?" I never had that issue, because I believe that if I remain silent, I am part of the problem. And if I don't bring their attention to it, okay, because maybe that person will say, "Oh, I didn't think about that, Donna." You thought about it. You just
Mhm.
didn't think that the DI was going to bring you on task to it. You thought about
Right.
it.
Right,
Okay.
right. And a lot of the times the truth is that they did, right? I was speaking to a friend yesterday, who was interviewed for Juneteenth, and he called out our governor in that interview because apparently there was data that was being presented on the disparity in terms of the assistance that was being given to minority businesses, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so his issue was, why is it that this data was now being brought forward in year 3 of your term rather than year 1 when you knew this information existed? So the truth is, as you said, there are instances where it's not unconscious. There is instances where they
They
actually do know what's
they
going
do
on.
know.
Right,
They do know. They do know.
right,
Trust me.
right,
Okay. They
right,
do know. Okay. I'm not
right.
going to give them a pass. You don't know. You know exactly what you're doing. Most
Yeah.
times, no one's going to call them out on it.
Hmm.
I had a boss who said, I say, I don't want to be depicted as the angry black woman. He said, Donna, you're not. He said, you may think that. He said, but you know what it is? You call folks out on their BS. Now, this is my
Right.
boss who don't look like you and I. He said, you call folks out on their BS, and that's what they're afraid of. Okay.
Right. And do keep in mind, I'd just like to acknowledge Carl, Chandra, and the other guys. I can see you watching, but you haven't commented, so I'm not necessarily able to see your you know, what's who is actually there, but I do see you in terms of the numbers. So Chandra just said the DI in the building. She sure is. Okay.
Hey,
Um,
Chandra, that's my sister, Chandra.
Okay, awesome. And then Carl had also said that, obviously they're making false assumptions, right? So so let's just talk a little bit more about, okay, so there are people who are not brave enough, right? Not necessarily because they want to stay silent, but because honestly they're fearful, right? And
Yes.
they're not as
That's a lot of it. That's a lot of it.
exactly, and people say,
Fear.
oh, but I need my job, right? So and we cannot discount that because that's a real fear, and so we cannot
It is
discuss
real.
exactly, and we can't discount how somebody may feel, and in terms of their livelihood and what will happen for them, and each situation is different. You also pointed out you had a manager who was receptive, right? There are a lot of instances where the managers are not receptive. They, as you said, they'll label
And
you
I've
as
had that.
right. You've lived long enough, I'm sure you had it.
Okay. And I've had it. And I've had it. And when I and that's a real thing.
Of
It's a
course.
real thing when now let me share with the listeners here.
Hmm.
I work in the legal industry. You
Hmm.
can't get any more bigger than that. The legal industry who can manipulate law, not manipulate the law, but can turn it on you, okay,
Oh,
when you bring
absolutely.
things to their attention.
Hmm.
However,
Hmm.
I believe that it was more important for me to speak up because I had children.
Right.
And to me, and not only because I had children, but as a woman of faith, I believed in who I was. So we have believers who
Hmm.
talk about I'm fearful, but God said He's not giving you a spirit of fear. And so, yes, I needed my job like anybody else needed my job. But I also believed in the God that I served, and I believed that if I spoke up on my behalf or another person's behalf, and if
Hmm.
they want to terminate me, then oh well, that I believe that my heavenly Father would not leave me nor forsake me, and would
Hmm.
always, and guess what? I've been doing this for a very long time. I've never been fearful of losing my job. I've never
Hmm.
been fearful. Why? Because I had to come home to my children, that I knew that what I was doing was not just for me, but was for
Hmm.
my children when they come
Right.
into corporate America. So no, I've never been fearful of no man about no job. Why? Because I know what I had. I know that what
Right.
I had was in demand.
Right. So you bring up a couple of different points there that I hear you saying. One, you knew your why. Your why was basically your children, right?
Yes.
And the other thing, you also knew who your source, your food and stuff, real substance comes from. So, fortunately for you, right, there are a lot of people Chandra said she's about to preach. I don't think there's an about Chandra. I think she just preached and will continue for the rest of this knowing Donna, right? Right. Okay. So, and yes, it does talk about being confident. So, but it is her confidence clearly, also comes from the fact that she knows her why, and she understands, and she has her faith. Now, there are people who they don't know that, right? They're just unfortunately operating in their fear, right? And like I was reading, one of the definitions of peace, is the absence of fear, right? Because fear and peace really cannot coexist, right?
Listen, exactly. I'm at peace. Hear me.
Right.
The DI is at peace, okay? And has always been at peace. And I also believe that you don't know what you don't know. So I believe that when God positioned me, now I work in New York City, and I've been in hundreds of law firms in New York City. If I didn't work there as a full-time employee, I worked there as an independent contractor. Why? Because my skill was in demand. However, everywhere that I've been, I believe that God positioned me there to be that vessel, to share with them, to encourage my sister and brother. Speak up, show up for who you are. Do not allow them to speak to you any kind of way. Do not allow them to bully you. You know how many jobs that supervisors and managers bully their staff?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, men and women bully, crying, oh, I wanted that job, but I don't know how to, they're going to talk to me any kind of way. No, listen, when the Lord sent me there, all of that went out the window.
Right.
And sometimes I would be fighting for people who wouldn't stand up for themselves. I'm an empath, so I would be feeling, and I'm like, what do you mean they're talking to you that way? I would tell people, please do not come and tell me. Please don't tell me. Don't tell me. Please don't tell me. If you tell me, we're going to put pen to the paper. If you tell me, we're going to, listen, we're going to HR. If I got to go over HR's head, we're not having it.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. So Carl brought up a good point here, right? He says fear of job, a lousy economy, deficiency causes many to remain silent. Those at the top also fear their top cliques' attitudes if they address issues, especially politicians fearing sponsors close their purse strings. Absolutely, Carl, and those are excellent points.
Yes.
So let's just talk about those for a minute, right? Because let me go one by one. He says, obviously, fear of losing the job, a lousy economy, of course, that can definitely feed into fear. I mean, and those are real things that are happening that anybody would be fearful for.
And that's why, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give y'all a pass. I'm sorry, the I can't do it. And that is why you got to have multiple streams of income. Because when one door closed, you got to have, when one door closed, listen, I'll always have multiple streams of income. If I'm not, listen, I'm sorry. When you allow that one job, well, if I lose my job, woe is me. Again, I'm a woman of faith. I know who I am. I'm a Proverbs 31 woman. I know what God said I am. And I never had it to the point of just one job. If you have one job, one stream of income, then of course you're nervous. Of course you're fearful. And I'm not, and listen, don't get me wrong. Did I always have this boldness? No, I didn't. But when the DI got it, what? Listen. So that I'm at peace.
And if you don't have the confidence, that's why you come to a confidence coach, right? AKA the Brilliant Activator. And we help you get there, right? Because you do need that level of boldness. You do need that level of peace where you can definitely step out and do the things that you need to do. And one of the ways that you get those things, apart from working with a coach, but you also you can work with a strategist that will definitely help you to be able to identify multiple streams of income. So you do not have that level of fear, because usually fear is there because you don't have a plan B. Right?
Judy,
you don't have a plan C.
I feel that to tell a testimony here. Even my husband, I had to teach my husband. Listen, so I'm going to keep it short. Okay, so my husband, he's on a job, right? He's on a job, and he's what you call a model employee. I would always say, if I had 10 of you, rather than having 40 employees, if I had 10 of you, I'd be great. So one particular year, we live in New Jersey. His office was in New York, and one year we had like 17 snowstorms. Now, from New Jersey to New York, My husband, he made sure he made it to that job.
Oh, wow.
You had people who lived 5-10 minutes away, did not make it to work. Now, it's time for his review. He gets his review. Now, he worked in a job where he could bring his review home. He brought his review home. I said, what is this? I said, they gave you good? Because if they gave you good, I want to know, what did they give the person that didn't come to work who lived 5-10 minutes away? He said, oh, they got good too. I said, that's not good enough for me. He was like, wait a minute. My job is not like your job. I can't tell. I said, wait a minute. We wrote a memo because I wanted to know. Now, mind you, my husband is such a model employee that the company did a commercial on him. You can't get no better than that. They featured a commercial.
Okay, so pause right a second. I'm so sorry to interrupt your flow, but I must. You get a rating of good.
Good. There was 5 ratings.
You get a rating of good, but you're so great that they did a commercial.
That part right there, Judy. I
just want to see if it was an alignment. Good and great.
Frame it up, okay? Because the next one was great. Frame it up. So I said, that's not going to work for me. He was like, no. And my husband, he was one of those people who was fearful of, I can't say anything. This is good. No, it's not good enough. You are so great of an employee that they did a commercial featuring you because of you. You're a model employee. I said, I'm not having it. I wrote a memo. I said, of course, I signed his name. I said, now you take this back to your manager, and I CC'd HR.
So I just want you to see Paul's comment. He says, isn't your husband black? Hence why we're having this live. My husband, now I'm 5'1", my husband's 6'3", black, tall man. Yes. Okay. I sent him back. Okay. So he goes, they call him in HR. And you know what? And then they didn't give him the raise that they promised him. That's not going to work. I said, we're not going to do this. You risked your life to go to that job. You was dedicated. So if they giving everybody good, then why should you do the extra? No, they need to reward you. Well, long story short, they rewarded him. Next year, so of course now, they know he got a wife. They know I work with lawyers. They know who I am. So the next year they was like, now, they tell him that, sir, don't go tell your wife. This is a great review. Because I wasn't having it. Okay. What did that do? That taught my husband something. Right. Because the next year, he said, you don't have to say anything. I got it. Okay. All right. So by basically, so you being 5'1" and he's a 6'2", but you were still able to teach him something in terms of how he should,
be treated
when he has to, right?
And to demand respect and command respect.
Right. Yeah.
Command respect for the work, the service that he's giving them.
Yeah. And, and one thing I do think that for people listening to us, whether now or in the replay, and if you do happen to watch it in the replay, feel free to go ahead and put #replay. But one thing I do want people to recognize that whenever you get a review, that's not the final say so, right?
No, it's not.
When you have a review, you do have the opportunity to respond, and you do have the opportunity to, push back and have, intelligent, professional conversation where you can outline, why is it that you disagree with what's written, and, along with the ratings, you do have the opportunity to do that. So Paul says, I was told that they didn't have enough money for the 6 of us. So they were going to test us. The 4 Black employees finished 1 through 4. Next thing they have enough for all 6. Paul, I'm not too clear on your oh, I got it. So they were going to test everyone. The Black employees got between 1 and 4, so they were in the top positions. So the 5th and the 6th positions were obviously the white employees, and suddenly they had enough money. I got you. I got it.
And these are games that they play all the time until you
Right.
task them. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and that's just it. Too many of us,
Mhm.
men and women of color, we remain silent.
Right.
Inside, we're upset, and it may come out in our work. But too
Mhm.
many of us remain silent, and that's why these things have gone on for so long. And yes,
Mhm.
a lot of times things are done in a silent kind of way that you can't prove it. I get it. But when you can prove it, or you know what,
Say
for
something.
me,
Mhm.
even if they say, if I couldn't really prove it, but I let them know I ain't stupid. I know what you're
Right.
doing. There
Mhm.
will not be any hidden agendas here, okay?
Right. Right. And as you said, one of the key things is definitely being comfortable enough to speak out. So Paul says, I agree, more than one source of income. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Alrighty. So we spoke about what are some of the things that can be done from a sustainable point of view to take us forward. And it says not just with throwing money, writing a good feel good video or message on your internet. So we spoke about racism. So I'm also going to pose this question to our audience, right? So feel free to drop your comments because I do know some of you and I do know you're in HR also. So what are some of the things that a company could do for a sustainable long-term process and procedures and protocols and policies that would positively impact the diversity within their corporation? So Donna just spoke about, AKA the DI. She just spoke about training because, of course, that is one of her areas of expertise, right? And I do totally agree with that. And I added that one of the trainings could definitely be racism training, right? And that would be one of the classes that you must take. When you go in a corporation, I remember my current firm, when I got in, I think I had to take 86 different trainings. I was like, Lord help me, right? So they should add on one to that and make it, 87, right? So, hey, what can I tell you? So, okay. So, all right. So let's move on from there. And we also wanted to talk about the pipeline. Now, my personal opinion is that I do believe that when it comes to the pipeline, that we do not have enough representation within the pipeline in terms of upper management. So I remember years ago, a friend of mine, she worked at Merrill Lynch, and they were talking about the back office, and they made the street language for the Merrill Lynch back office. I'm not hitting on them. This is just how they talk, right? Is they call the back office black office. Yes. So that's the word on the street. Merrill Lynch, if you hear this live, don't come at me. I'm telling you what the people say on the street, right? That's what the lady said. I said, come again? She says, black office. Now, the reason for this, and stay with me, guys, I'm setting something up, right? The reason for this is because we talk about that pipeline to upper management, that pipeline to middle management, right? So what would happen is that you have in the operations area, right? You have most of the minorities, right? Whether it be brown or black people. But then as you go up into management, because that pipeline, they were not training from, people at the lower level to train them upline. They were definitely hiring in. And of course, what you were getting in were definitely white people all the time. So you definitely had this crazy disparity that was going on, right? So, that's one of the reasons why I want us to address the pipeline, as I call it. So just before we move on to that, so Paul is responding to the question I asked about what some of the things that the companies can do, and he said diversity training. But Paul, don't you believe that they already have diversity training?
Mm-hmm.
And what exactly is that doing for us? Right?
Nothing.
Because I really do, and Donna, your thoughts on that, right? And Paul, please don't take that as I'm knocking your answer, because I'm really not, right? I just wanted you to go a little bit further with that for me, right? Because we do have diversity training, right? As a matter of fact, we had diversity first, and they call it now diversity and
inclusion.
Right? And and at the end of the day, we're still experiencing that. So that's why it's just something to check a box to say that I did do
and
this
that's
training.
Exactly what it is.
We need something that touches the
More.
heart, that
we need real talk.
Right, exactly. That
Real
allows
talk.
for an eye opening, that allows for a higher level of awareness, that allows for, a change in how I operate, because it is the right thing to do, right? So let me see what Paul is saying. He says, keep in mind that it doesn't matter how much training is done, it's not enforced, it's futile. Oh, absolutely. As a
It's
matter
accountability. It's
of right.
accountability. Point blank. We could have all the diversity and inclusion offices all over the world. We've already
Mhm.
had that. Okay. But not until now. And I
Right.
mean, this is not anything. I mean, I love diversity and inclusion. Okay.
Oh, of course.
But my whole thing is that was just to check off the box, just to say, because
Hmm.
a lot of companies will not even do business with you if you don't have certain roles in place,
Right.
i.e.
Right.
diversity and inclusion. Okay.
Right.
But
Right.
it's not just enough having diversity and inclusion. I believe you have to have some awareness, some accountability, and
Hmm.
real talk, like real talk conversations. Like you can get into a room, okay, a diverse workforce, and say, guess what? I've been working on this floor,
Hmm.
and my next door office, white people, and you won't even say good morning to me. What is that? We all working for the same firm. You
Right.
act like I don't even exist.
Hmm.
You don't have to like me, but we all working together.
Right.
That's a real talk conversation. Okay?
Absolutely.
That's a real
Absolutely.
talk conversation when you have some person saying, well, you know what? This person has to wait their turn to become a manager.
Hmm.
Okay. Oh, so the men and women of color has to wait their turn, but the Caucasian person, that person didn't have to wait their turn. What
Right.
are you saying? So those are real talk conversations that have to be had. I believe when that happens, that's when there will be a change.
Right. I love Paul's comment here. I don't know if you can see it, Donna. He goes,
I can't.
I know. Well, I'll read it out for you, right? He goes, a lot of talk, but no action from these trainings. We need a practical role reversal. No, that's an
Yeah.
idea. For a
Yes.
week, let the employees be in charge of the manager and have them treat them the way that
But
they've
it's
been treated.
listen.
Listen,
That's
Paul.
a real.
Listen. We probably have a civil war.
Yeah. But again, so even with that,
Right.
there's I know so many people because I'm always I've been in these conversations for years. So many times when I hear how people are treated. And
Uh-huh.
my thing is, you as an individual, how did you allow that to happen? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just cannot. How did you, as an individual, man or woman, I don't care what color you are,
Mhm,
that
mhm,
you
mhm,
allow yourself to be, some people have literally been bullied,
mhm, mhm.
and that's
Right,
not okay in the workplace.
right, right. Um, and that's definitely true. So Paul is also saying here, so when some blacks are promoted, they turn into them. So I mean,
And
and
forget
that
what,
is
oh,
true,
please don't start me with
right?
that. Please,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. You know what? God knows this. I'm passionate about these topics, okay?
Right, right,
And
right.
so many of us, especially men and women of color, we
Hmm.
get promoted and we forget who we
Where
are.
we came
We
from,
surely forget our identity, and we surely forget where we came from. And
right,
they're the worst.
right,
Okay,
and
they're the worst.
right. One of the things that I think that we should uh, every company should keep in mind, right? Where I, as a manager, I should be responsible. Part of my performance review should be where I am responsible to pull someone up, not just someone who
Yes.
looks like me,
Me.
but somebody who
Exactly.
exactly right. There should be attached to your performance review as a senior manager, because as a senior manager, you're not just there to call it a paycheck and make the company look good. You're also there to be a leader, and leader pull people along with them. Leader
And
literally can
develop your
have
team. You're there to
exactly
develop your team and
exactly
bring them
right
up. You're there to
right.
develop your team. Okay, it's not
Hmm.
just about you because you've arrived,
Hmm.
regardless
Hmm.
of what color you are. You are
Hmm.
there, but especially men and women of color, I believe you have a responsibility to
Hmm.
go and do for those who look like you. Who I don't care if anyone didn't do it for you, because that's a
Hmm.
lot of times what I hear. Oh, no one did it for me. So what does that mean? Because no one did it for you. Because no
Right.
one did it for you, but now you're in a position to bring someone else up.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
talk about that because that's what I do. And that's what I've
Right.
always done. And
Right.
not wait for someone to tell me to do it.
Right.
Because no one did it for me. But
Right.
that doesn't mean that was okay. It's not okay. I have people who I have worked with who didn't know, who started from the very bottom, and now they're at the top because I made sure that I invested in
with them. Right, in them, yeah. And that's real true. So let me address Paul's comment here. It says, Judy, that's a fantasy. So that comment came when I was talking about attaching the pulling up of someone, or the development of someone more junior to that senior management. You know what, Paul? It is a fantasy until someone does it. It is a fantasy until a company takes it serious enough and actually attach that to your performance review. Right? I have a friend that works at IBM, and it's actually, I don't know if they implemented it or if it's under discussion, right? So it is actually a possibility. And yes, we know it can be a fantasy, but if we take it seriously, and this leads us into two of my other questions here. All right, so he says, I literally went and pick up a director drunk from the strip club, and he turned on me. Wow. What can I tell you? It happens, right?
I would have recorded his butt. Strip club and all. I mean, that's not funny, but yeah, he turned on you because he was embarrassed the next day. Okay.
Right. That's basically it.
But you being who you are, wouldn't pick them up. Yeah, okay.
Right. Next time he would have stayed right there. So, okay. All right. And thanks for joining us also. All right. So let us talk about the messaging, staying with the more on the company end of things, right? So let's talk about the messaging coming from the top, right? So if we do not get the message from the top, right? Usually there's no buy-in in the middle, much less the bottom, right? So what are some of the ways, and this is also to our listening audience, what are some of the ways that you think that we can have the top really, really do things that would influence their middle level management to work in such a way that it's positive for all employees, not just some employees?
You asking me?
Well, yeah,
the audience?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I think it starts from the top. Okay, middle management is not going to do anything that they don't get. They don't feel they're going to get validation from or affirmation from. Okay, so I believe it starts from the top. And for me, I work in a company now that's what has happened. It starts from the top, and to the point of that, I've always, when I'm talking here, I've spoken there. Okay, and it's been recognized. For them to say, Donna, you've always brought this to our attention, whether or not we was listening or not, but it's always been there. And so when you are in a corporation where the senior level management understand what their responsibility is, that's where it has to start from. It has to start from, because, listen, there's not many DIs out there. I'm going to be real. Okay. I know that.
No, they're not. Because one of the core issues, and one of the core reasons, as you shared, is that people are unwilling
fearful.
they're fearful to speak up. And that's just the God's truth, right? And so we're coming up on time now. So I just wanted to kind of refresh our listeners, for those of you who weren't with us last week, some of the questions that we had addressed at the time. We spoke about, when you were aware of that there were salary disparities. I shared a story where there was a former staff. There was a huge disparity that was existing prior to my time, where you had the white employee doing the identical job as the black employee, and there was literally a salary disparity of $30,000. Donna also gave an example, I believe, that she came across where there's a disparity of $10,000. So we do know that exists. Now, if you want to know, when people said systematic racism doesn't exist, that's a perfect example that it does exist.
Yes, it
Then, in
does
addition to
exist.
that, you want to know one of the domino effects that happens with a thing like that. If you have one employee making $30,000 more or $10,000 more, and you wonder why, can this white employee live in the better neighborhood, drive the better car, take more vacations, send their kids to the better schools, get even higher education? Those are some of the reasons, right? Because of the lack of equality, even on an income point of view. So Donna, last week, what she shared is that when you see things like that, do something about it, speak up about it for your employee so they too can at least come up. Now, we are aware that there is such thing as salary degradation, right? There is such thing as salary degradation, and that will happen if you stay in a job too long.
Yes.
So it also is your responsibility, if you recognize, right, apart from the disparity of the salary difference because of race, if you recognize that you've been in a company for too long, the company is not going to match what that white person, or even if it's a black person coming in at market rate, is going to do.
Right.
It is usually kind of impossible. It's just not going to happen. It's just how it operates, right?
It's just the way it operates. But
right.
Whereas in my case, these employees, they were all hired at the same time.
Right.
The white employees were hired at the same time as the black employees, and the white employee and the black employees even had more experience, but yet the white employees were making $10,000. This was like about 5 employees.
Mm-hmm.
The white employees were making $10,000 more than the black employees, but they all came in the same time.
Right? Okay. So of course, in a situation like that, of course, it's just there, right? But in the other side to it is that sometimes when you find that out, right, the company, they can do something about it, but chances are, if it's a wide disparity like that $30,000 that I was telling you about, honestly, you just have to leave. You have to go somewhere where you are, what Donna said last week, where you are not tolerated. What was the thing you said? You said where you're celebrated, not tolerated, right? So, and you know your skill sets. So you have to make sure that you do what you need to do there. Now, Paul is saying, Judy, that's where the problem lies. They only care about the green. Listen, I work in investment banking. Yeah, they care about the green, right?
All day.
And the truth is, let's be honest. Some of the things that are definitely now inspiring the movement by a lot of people, let's use the NFL, right, is because they're worried about what's going to happen if there is such a wide range revolt, right, for the season, in terms of, because at the end of the day, if you think about it, who are the majority in that industry? So let's use the NFL in terms of the players. So the majority are, black and brown people.
They're not the owners, but they're the players.
Well, they're not the owners, but they make it happen.
Yeah. Right? Again, they're making the games happen. Okay.
Yeah. See, that's what happened, but I got okay. I got you. Alrighty. So, one of the comments says, "Where do you think the angry black woman came from?" Absolutely. We experience that all the time when you do speak up. And that's why I was sharing with Donna, where I said earlier that she was fortunate that she had her manager who wouldn't interpret her as being this angry black person, because one of the I won't even call this unconscious, because it's not unconscious, because it's being put out there, where if a white woman says the identical things we said, or even worse, she was just expressing her views. If I come along and I say something, then all of a sudden I'm the angry black woman.
Yes.
Right. So sadly, that's what happens. So hi, Ronald, thanks for joining us too. Right. So unfortunately, that's some of the things that happens there. Now, so it says, okay, where are the key players in the organization that can align yourself with to help move the organization forward? So this is more to everybody who's on here, and even you, Donna, you can sure answer this in the meantime also. So if I have a junior employee, right, or even a mid-level employee, where and how should they align themselves so that would help them to move forward in this climate?
Well, I believe this is an amazing opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is an amazing opportunity, and it starts with using your voice.
Right.
Using your voice. You can't, no one's going to look at you and say, you know what? I mean, I do it, but most people are not like me. Okay. I can look at someone's potential and say, you know what? I can develop that person. Right. But most people are not going to do that. So you have to toot your own horn. You have to open up your mouth. You have to use your voice. You got to put pen to the paper, you know, and align yourself with, you know, and then sometimes people don't even want to go to their boss, their immediate boss. They don't want to go to their immediate, because sometimes the immediate boss is the problem. They don't want to, you know, no one wants to elevate you, right? But you may have to go, that's where you may have to start. But I always say, start there and CCHR. Make HR do their job.
Right. You see, I am not, from being in management for so many years, I am not a big go to HR first person. Reason being is that HR works for the company, not for us. And that's just the truth. So I think oftentimes an employee may say, oh, okay, go to HR. But the truth is HR is there to protect the company. They're not really there to protect you. They will protect you when it would be a liability for them
that's why
to protect you. So that's right.
Yeah, I'm not saying go to HR first. I'm saying go to your manager along and CC along with HR, because at the end of the day, if your manager is putting some stops in place that they are not promoting you and they are not developing you, as when you have told HR what's going on, it's HR's job to make sure that that manager does what it needs to do so that it's not a liability for the firm. Make HR do their job.
Right. Okay. So before we go any further with that, one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys is to let you know, okay, so during this climate, we are having a lot of people, they're feeling that fear. Their hope is being diminished. And of course, if your hope is diminished, it goes right along with your confidence too. You are not willing to speak up because that fear is holding you and it's keeping you stuck. So one of the things that I offer is a course that is called Activate Your Destiny. It focuses primarily on rebuilding that hope and strengthening that confidence. So if that's something that you'd like to hear more about, you can, drop a comment there, or you can DM me, so we can, have further conversations on that too. I would also have the, the link running there. So you're welcome to do that. In addition to that, I also have, ebooks where you can get tips that I would also drop the links to those later. So, well, actually, there's one there too. So there are different ones that you can look at. So if you would like to talk about the program that would, of course, help you move from that fearful mode and get unstuck to rebuilding your hope and strengthening your confidence, by all means, as I said, DM me. In addition to that, you can pick up those tips that I have scrolling there. If they're not there right now, I would edit the comment above and put the link there so as you have a soft link. Alrighty, so we, in the interest of time, so last week we closed off by giving some tips towards white folks, which I am going to repeat those tips, but I also want to give the tips for us Black people. Now, some of the tips, we already shared some of them, which was basically, okay, we said about how do you align yourself with the appropriate personnel that would get you to move forward. One, I always say, find a mentor within the company, and it's good to have more than one mentor. It's one that look like you and one that do not look like you.
Exactly.
So you can understand how the game is played, from their side. So I always recommend having not just a mentor who looks like you. You need someone who does not look like you also, right? So that's one of the things that I also offer. Then let's just look at us. How can we also remove the stereotype that is usually, branded on us without being true? Now, I want to be very mindful with my words. Racism is not a problem for Black people to solve. I will repeat that. Racism is not a problem for Black people to solve. Why? We did not create the problem. We did not create that monster, because racism, as we know, is attributed to the economy, is attributed to finances, is attributed, how can I build my wealth on the backs of Black people? right? That is basically some of the facets of racism. So I want to be very clear. The tips I'm giving to Black people for the workplace is not so you can solve racism, but so you can lessen the impact towards you at times, right? So when I say what I'm about to say, make sure we dress the part, because if truth be told, sometimes the way we show up feeds into the stereotype of what they already have about us. So that's why I want to be mindful, and that's why I preface this that saying racism is not a problem for Black people to solve, but we also have to do our part in not feeding into those stereotypes, right? Unfortunately, that's a bit of the burden that we play, but quite frankly, dressing appropriately, showing up appropriately, being professional shouldn't really be a burden to bear. That should be, because you're a brand, you want to present a certain way. So the minute somebody sees you, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you execute your work, right? And also develop a motto for yourself. What is your motto for your personal life and your professional life? I share mine with you. Mine is operate with a spirit of excellence. I actually sign off my emails on that, whether it be work, personal stuff. That is my motto for me, for my life. Anything that I do, I'm going to do it with a spirit of excellence. So you'll know, anybody who knows me, know Judy-Ann can't deal with nonsense. Okay, because that is the spirit that I operate in. So those are some of the things that you can do. And of course, educate yourself, right? Education is a huge thing in terms of your mobility. Now, education does not stop racism. As we can see, we have, I think it was, the last time I checked, it was 50.8% of women that had higher degrees, right? If we break it down by race, I think the Black woman even outpaces the white woman, but it doesn't really matter. So obviously education is not going to stop racism. However, what it does for you, it gives you the ability to have that edge for competition, your expertise. So as the DI mentioned before, if you're being tolerated, you have the option to leave, because there may not be instances where you can fix the problem. So the best case scenario is to pack up your goods and your knowledge and leave. The other thing that I always tell my staff to do is make sure you take advantage of every single training that they have out there. You know why? If they do not give you a pay increase, they cannot take the knowledge that's out of your brain. They cannot take the knowledge that's out of your brain. You leave with that. So I always implore staff, please go take a course. Do not come into the firm and leave the same way in which you go out. I will repeat that. Do not come into the firm and leave the same way in which you came in. Why? Because you have basically only been a monetary vehicle, meaning you've only gathered an income that you use to pay bill, and that's something that's depreciable. But your knowledge, the education that you gain, that's an appreciable asset, because now you've gotten something extra, so you can go out there and make sure that you get a better job. So that's some of the tips for the Black folks, and some of the things that you can do. Now, I think I've lost Donna for a second. Oh, here she goes. All right. So those are the stuff that we said for Black folks, right? So then I wanted to also just recap, and we're 2 minutes over time, but hang with me there. I just wanted to recap the tips that we left last week for the white folks. We said, I stole this from Pastor Rick Warren, and he said, do not be color blind, be color blessed. In other words, stop telling us that you don't see us, because when you say you're colorblind, you're basically telling me that you don't see me. Why? I'm colorful. All right. So be color blessed. The other thing that we said is that don't tell someone don't tell somebody that you understand their pain. You're white. It's humanly impossible for you to understand my pain. What you can do is empathize with my pain. So there's a difference. So the other thing that we also said was, don't tell someone just get over it. In other words, don't tell them to just forget their history, because it's not that easy to do. And I think last week we used the reference where they're not telling the Jews to just get over it, right? So don't tell someone to get over it, because you do not know the depth that pain goes. The other thing also is to go ahead and to help fight the stereotypes that we spoke about just briefly. Don't buy into the stereotype. Take that time to go out to lunch with somebody that does not look like you. Go out with a Black person, go out with a brown person. So you can then learn, because what usually happens when you do that is that you find out that you can find commonality in values, right? Donna, I had seen Donna on different lives, seen her on social media. I know I must have met her somewhere in New Jersey too, because I know the face from before. But in talking to Donna, even though we hadn't spoken before, there were a lot of things in terms of the value system that Donna and I could definitely align with and work together. And there were synergies because we have similar value system in different areas, right? So those are some of the things that Black people and white people can use. Look at the value of the value system of the person, and then you'll find commonality, and you can grow from there. So with that being said, the DI, is there anything that you'd like to add? You're muted.
I'm going to leave you guys with this quote that I came up with to help people in their career, to help people in their business. When you change the picture in your mind of how you see yourself and who you are, your performance will change.
Absolutely.
And then, only then, will your profits or your pay changes. But it starts with you. You got to change the picture in your mind of how you see yourself.
Right, right. Awesome. I love that. Absolutely. Because as you said, it all starts in your mind, and your mind is a powerful thing. So the key thing is to change that picture. And not only just change the picture to a better picture, a better version of yourself. All right. So we also wanted to acknowledge a comment here from Muggy Mac, who says, don't be silent. The moment for silence. If you wish to be an ally, it's impossible to be silent and claim to be an ally. Absolutely true.
Absolutely.
Right. I totally agree with that there. So guys, thank you so much for those of you who have chimed in along the way. If I didn't acknowledge you, as my father would say, charge it to my head, not my heart. Right. I would definitely comment, go in the comment section later on, because I'm aware that is streaming on the Coaching You Upward page, as well as my personal page. So I will go back and forth there. So thank you so much for chiming in. I think this was a needed discussion. You asked for part 2, and we aim to please, and we delivered part 2. So hopefully you found it useful, and do go into those tips and everything that Donna said. And Donna, can you we'll close on this. Just go ahead and give that quote. Well, it's not really a quote because it's yours. Say what you said about changing the picture in your mind, because I think that's a powerful thing for us to end on. And also, if there's anything that you wanted to promote, can you do so now?
Sure. Change the picture in your mind, and your performance will change. And then your profits and or pay must change when you change the picture in your mind. For those Black or brown women who are listening to this, I have a movement called the Unstoppable Black Woman Circle on Facebook. Come on and join us, where we embracing our B's unapologetically. Black, beautiful, brilliant, bold, and business-minded, unstoppable Black woman. That's me. I believe that it's an assignment from God to teach our Black and brown sisters how to have that boldness, how to embrace their beauty, their Blackness, their brilliance. Okay. And you got to be business minded. We got to have those multiple streams of income. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having me. And we got to do better. We got to do better as a people, and we will.
Right. All righty. Thank you so much. And Donna, much love to you. I will talk to you afterwards. And thanks for coming on with me a second time. And guys, thanks you for listening.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
Right. See you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay.